Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Octopus Digital Webinar Series. I'm Adil Khalid, serving as our VP at Octopus Digital. Great to have you with us, whether you're on Zoom or watching on LinkedIn Live. So before we begin, a quick recap for those who've been following along. In episode 1, we heard from the leadership at the Emirates Macaroni Factory in Gulf and Tapal, a leading tea manufacturer, on how they transformed their operations, improving machine availability, performance, and quality through the Omni OAE solution. The focus was getting more out of the equipment they already owned. Now, in episode 2, we brought in the agropolymers and chemicals, like Colgate-Palmolive, who actually replaced their paper-based plant logging with mobile-first digital workflows, and that was via the digital log. And that helped capturing better data where it happens, and that is on the plant floor. So today we are going to get one step further because capturing data and optimizing machines only matters if people making decisions can actually get to the right information when they need it, right? And that is the question behind this episode 3. Now, why does it still take days to get consolidated report from systems your organizations have been investing in for years? Now, why does a senior executive need to email 3 departments and wait for 48 hours for a cross-functional view of sales versus a budget? Now, there are 2 organizations joining us today, as you may see on screen, that have answered this question. First is the Lucky Core Industries, one of Pakistan's largest industrial groups. And we also have Service Tires, who are a major manufacturer, a tire manufacturer, in fact, and distributors with multi-stream supply chains. Now, both are going to be talking about and actually walking us through what happened when they deployed OmniChat, a Gen AI product from Octopus Digital, secure enterprise AI assistant, as we call it. Now, a couple of housekeeping items before we actually take a start, right? So from the audience on the Zoom, you may please introduce yourself in the chat. You can tell us your name, your company, where you're joining from. And for our LinkedIn Live viewers, we are watching the comments. So feel free to ask questions or share your thoughts as we go. We do have a dedicated Q&A towards the end, but you may please feel free to drop your questions anytime in the chat, and we will try to get back to as many as we can. And with that, let's hit the floor. And I would like to bring Mr. Tanveer Karamat, CEO of the Octopus Digital. And Tanveer is going to set the context for today and talk about the problems that we are solving or helping to solve and give you a look at the OmniChat and how it works. So over to you, Tanveer.
Thank you, Adil, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining. Over the past several years, I mean, you all must have noticed, and I have too, that industrial organizations have heavily invested in digitalization, both on the OT side as well as the IT side. And interestingly, a new phenomena has also emerged where OT and IT the automation and the digitalization projects are dovetailing each other. Now, as a result, the organizations are churning out far more data today than ever before. So the real challenge is not collecting the data anymore as it used to be. The real challenge today is how to convert that data into decisions quickly, accurately, and at scale. It's very important. The accuracy and the speed and scale all matters. Pilot projects are fine, but unless you're able to scale them, you cannot reap the benefit of the technology that you have invested. And I'll come to that later how. So since the data is grown, this is where generative AI becomes transformative. For the first time, the users can now interact with their operational data by using natural language without having to dig into their systems to pull out the information for reporting or for analysis, for anything. They can simply ask the question and get the insight. What would take, I would say, hours or sometimes days to search and analyze the data can now be done in minutes. In minutes, voila, you have an insight. This is amazing. And for industrial organizations, this is a great, significant opportunity. AI is not here to replace humans. It will not eat up your jobs, but for sure it will eat up pieces of your job that's supposed to be eaten because they are very repetitive, boring, and computational that you don't need to. Humans need to focus on strategy, vision, judgment, and stuff like that, not doing the run-of-the-mill work. But in fact, I would rather take it a step forward that it cuts down your cognitive load. And it, in fact, boosts your cognitive capacity and capability at the same time. It enables teams to do quick troubleshooting, analyze their years of historical data and see pattern in that data, which otherwise is humanly not possible, without going into the detailed analysis for days and sometimes months to arrive at that. And now all of that can be done very quickly. You can compare operational performances, so on and so forth. The other thing that I like about generative AI is that it has actually raised the intellectual base of organization. Why I say that? Because people who do not have the expert knowledge, they are not so senior in the organization, can now have the same access to information and analysis as would available to few expert hands. So it is a true democratization of the information and knowledge base within an organization, and it uplifts the whole organization to perform at a different operating level. This is the power of this new technology. Okay, but what is important in today's environment is the speed which is of learning, of course, which is in a new competitive. You can achieve competitiveness by learning faster than others. I would say the companies who can understand and learn faster from their data can optimize faster. And the future of competitive edge is not determined in how much data you've gathered. It is determined how fast you have learned from the data as compared to others. So speed is a very important aspect. Okay, there is certainly a risk for organizations who do not want to adopt this. There are many horror stories. I can quote many, but because of the shortage of time, I would skip that. But I can tell you, this will put you behind many years, and it would affect you in many ways. Decision making could be very slow if you're not at the pace with which the industry is moving. Your productivity can be affected vis-a-vis your competitors who are AI enabled. In our own company, we see this happening. Coders who are using AI have greater throughput than coders who do not use that. So we have mandated that everyone should use AI to augment their delivery process. You're spending more time gathering and searching for information rather than solving real life problems. So therefore, it is important that this technology has come to the fore and can solve your business requirements. Today, you don't Google for your information. You just go to Claude or the Chat GPT to ask any information, and it is doled out right away. So this is the power of this technology. Okay. From a leadership perspective, I would emphasize three things. First, that this AI, generative AI, is not a technology initiative. It should not be a technology initiative. It should be a business initiative. You're using this technology to address certain business needs. So therefore, you need to identify a certain use cases where you can demonstrate a quick win and a value to your organization. Second, the AI must be trusted. Trust is important. So it should provide you the information that a user is getting should have a confidence that the insight that I'm receiving is trustworthy. So therefore, it provides you secure, reliable, and explainable answers. This is very important, right? And third, keep human in the loop. AI is supposed to augment human judgment, not replace it, right? The responsibility or accountability is with the user, not with AI. However, the AI is helping you to accelerate that process of analysis. This is very important. And exactly on these lines, this product of OmniChat is built on its need to keep your data secure, provide accurate answers swiftly, and democratize this information knowledge across organization. This is the purpose of building this product. Security is one of the prime requirements of organizations. They do not want to share their data to the public. When you do that, in case of the LLMs, the data gets opened to the public, which is not what the organization need. Okay, but I don't want to delve into how the OmniChat is helping the organization. I will leave it to the participants, the speakers to follow. But I would leave you with one last thought, that generative AI is not changing the value of your data. It is changing the speed with which the data becomes action. And we see this not as yet another technology trend, but truly a next step in industrial transformation. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tanveer, for such valuable thoughts and absolutely on the dot. I'd like to invite Khurram, who's one of our product experts, in fact, a leader in the domain, to take us through some of the practical side of what this Jenny looks like. So, Khurram, can I have you on board, please?
Sure. Thank you, Adil. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Over the next 10 minutes, I will try to answer one question that is how you can give your people the power of generative AI on your enterprise data without sharing your precious data with the publicly available LLM. So this is not a marketing slogan. I'm going to show the exact architecture that you can follow to achieve this milestone or goal, right? So let me share my screen. I wanted to share a couple of things. Before I start, let's start with the cost, which is not covered in any P&L. So according to McKinsey, which is a leading management consulting firm, approximately 2 hours of a resource is spent in finding the right information. And this is because of the fact in enterprise companies, information is scattered into multiple systems. We do have ERP system, CRP system, plant data. So what they need to do is they need to collect data from all these sources, combine them, make a meaning of it before they can take any action. Similarly, another consulting firm, IDC, has reported that for knowledge worker, they are spending approximately 30% of their time in finding the right information. So if we combine both of these studies, we know that 1 out of 5 employee is always effectively unproductive. This is a huge number that we need to understand. Now, we all know, as Mr. Tanveer has already pointed out, that generative AI is a technology that has a huge potential to solve this particular problem. So, according to McKinsey, generative AI can add up to 2.6 to 4.4 trillion dollar to the global economy alone. Now, this is not a new concept. Organizations have already started utilizing it. And approximately 65% of the organization has started utilizing this particular technology. Now, in the same report, it is mentioned that the productivity level can increase between 30 to 45%. So up till now, we have established that generative AI has a potential to increase our productivity. Now, let's go through some of the concern associated with the generative AI. And one of the biggest concern associated with the generative AI is security. So according to LearX, which is a leading enterprise security company, 77% of the employers are using generative AI. They basically copy paste the sensitive data on the publicly available ChatGPT or Claude. Another study shows that 40% of the interactions with the generative AI basically involve sensitive information. And according to the IBM, 1 out of the 5 security breaches involve generative AI. And unfortunately, the biggest problem is the conventional DLP system, which are used to protect sensitive information. They does not work with the generative AI. They don't have the capability to detect this sort of a data breach. Now, we know that generative AI has a huge potential. We know there are some security risks associated with it. So let's assume that publicly available LLMs are perfectly fine. They don't have any security issue. Even then, there are a couple of issues associated with them. So first of all, they are trained on publicly available data. Yes, 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. I believe there is some.
Khurram, you might want to reshare your screen, please.
Sure, let me do that.
Yeah.
So is it visible now?
Can you just stop sharing and share again?
Still the same.
Yeah. You might just stop sharing and then share again.
So is it better now?
Still loading. No, looks like there is some issue with the screen share because some of the area is batched.
Is it better now, Adil?
It's
No.
better than before, I would say, but it's still some
Still
portion
patched.
is
Sure,
bad.
let me do it again. So is
here
it
goes
better now
the,
or still same issue?
it's pretty much the same, Khurram.
Okay. I think
I think let's go ahead.
we
Yeah,
can
you can
proceed,
carry
please.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
carry on. Oh, wherever you touch
Okay.
it.
Okay, so let's assume, even if we up till now we have discussed that uh, generative AI have a great potential and there are a couple of security risk associated using with it. So even if we assume that a publicly available LLM is safe, there is no security problem with that, there are still a couple of business related issues with it. So first of all, any publicly available LLM is going on publicly available internet. So they don't have knowledge about your plant, your KPIs, or your SAP orders. So they don't have a visibility of your internal systems. Uh, so since they are trained on the publicly available internet, they can give you a generic answers instead of giving you answers which are specific to your organization. For example, I try to explain it with the help of an analogy. So a fiscal year in some of the companies, the fiscal years start in January, whereas in some of the companies it start in July. So if you ask a question about a physical answer, unless you explicitly mention, LLM will not be able to understand which model your company specifically follow. Similarly, the last problem area is the traditional BI tools are great for the technical people, but for business users, if they have to perform some sort of a ad hoc analysis, they will not be able to do it. They need some sort of a technical knowledge to perform these operations. So all of these problems, even if we ignore the security part, we still have to face it. So ideally, we should need a LLM which understands our enterprise data and can understand your internal terms to give answers to you. So in order to solve these problems, we basically developed our product called OmniChat. Uh, in a simple words, it's a chat GPT for your enterprise data without sharing your enterprise data with the any LLM. So your data does not leave your enterprise. So on a very high level, what it allows you to ask questions using natural language. So you can ask questions relevant to your company, and it will be able to understand it. It will be handling all the technicalities and will give you answers right away. Secondly, it has multiple connectors. Currently, we have more than 450 connectors. So whatever system you are using, it can connect with that and enable you to perform ad hoc analysis using natural language. In addition to that, it also have the capability to perform data cleansing. So generally, the data available is the organization. It needs to be cleaned before it can give you useful information. And Omni Chat has the capability to perform these data cleansing using natural language. Uh, Similarly, it has the capability to learn. So whatever interactions we do with the system, it can learn from it. And later in this presentation, I will explain how this is achieved. It is private by design. It only processes the metadata, and your raw data never leaves your environment. And again, I will explain this particular part in the later part of my presentation, where I will discuss the high-level architecture, how we are able to achieve this. Then we can also create ad hoc dashboarding with this particular tool. So this is a very high-level functional architecture of this OmniChat application. On the left-hand side, you can see there are multiple data sources. It can connect with any OT data, operational data. Normally in the automation domain, it can connect with the devices, sensors. It can also connect with the business applications like CRM, ERP, HRMS system. So whatever business application you're using, it can connect with that. In addition to that, it can also connect with any database engine. It can connect with any CSV file or the Excel files. In short, whatever data source you have, it can connect with that And then it allows the end user to communicate with the OmniChat using natural language. As a result of this interaction, it can give you either the text information, a tabular information, or images, visualizations, or the dashboards. So let's see what are the typical questions that can be asked. So we can ask to analyze the good pieces production over the time for a particular plant. And what it will do is it can draw a line chart where you can interact with the graph. You can zoom it up a specific area. And even though, so the important thing is you will be using the natural language and you don't need any technical information to generate this information. Previously, whenever we need to have this information, we need to engage the technical team, the business analyst team, or the data engineer. Now it gives the power to the top executive to ask questions related to the data. Similarly, we can ask what is the average OE for the particular machine, and it will be able to do that. Not only it will provide you the data, it can also give the reasoning behind it. It can try to understand the pattern and highlight the pattern in your data. So one of the most important thing is how we can deploy this system. So there are 4 ways in which we can deploy this system. From left to right, you can see different options. So the leftmost on-prem, which is air gap system, each and everything will be deployed on your network. You will be using an open source LLM, so nothing will leave your organization. It is the most secure deployment method, but it will cost you more because you have to procure your own GPUs card. And the number of GPUs depend upon the complexity of the LLM models we can use. This type of deployment is generally suitable for companies like banks, insurances, healthcare related data. The second best approach that we normally, which is recommended for majority of the use cases, and this is the same approach that we use for LCI and service. We call it a hybrid approach. In this particular case, your data remains within your on-prem, whereas you use publicly available LLM. Please note that even in this particular case, your data, the sensitive data remains within your organization. It does not go to the LLM. I will explain this part later on in next slide. So it gives you a very good security and it is comparatively most cost effective, I would suggest. And for majority of the cases, this deployment model should work. In addition to that, we also support private cloud. So just in case, if you have your own cloud and cloud infrastructure, we can deploy this application on that. And it can also be deployed on the public cloud environment, which will be most economical, but there are few compromises on the security side. So as far as security and compliance is concerned, I just wanted to highlight it again and again that your data never leaves your servers or private cloud. We are able to achieve this using metadata. And we do not give your data to any LLM for gear training. We also provide role-based access control so that you can control which information is available to which specific user. Each and every chat that is done using this particular system is logged so that the administrator can go back and see what is happening with this particular application. The data is encrypted in transit at rest, aligned with the industry standard. In addition to that, Octopus Digital and Invention is an ISO 27001 certified company, which means we follow all the standards imposed by this particular certification. So this is a high-level architecture. This is a hybrid approach that we normally use for our customers. So you can see there are 2 main boxes here. On the left-hand side is the OmniChat cloud. On the right-hand side, we have any client network, right? So in the first step, what we do is we ask the client to give us one VM or machine on their network where we install OmniChat runtime. You don't need to give us access. We only need read-only access on your main database. So what happened is, in the step one, the user basically asks a question. In addition to that, in addition to the original question, the application also gives the metadata. So when we say metadata, we are talking about the number of tables, uh, column names in each column, and that's it. We don't share the exact data. We only share the column names in the step one and two. So so this information is sent to the OmniChat application in the step three. We forward this information to the LLM and ask it to generate a code or query which is returned back to the OmniChat in step 4. Again, we only ask it to generate a code which could be a Python code or SQL query. It is sent back to the OmniChat application. We send this information to our runtime in the step 5. This query is executed on your actual data. Data is whatever the result is, it is sent back to the OmniChat runtime. And then in the last step, this information is displayed on OmniChat application. Now, please note that after the step 4, there's nothing which is shared with the LLM. The only information that we share with the LLM is the metadata that contains the column name and the description. That's it. The code that we generate is executed locally. The data we receive is executed locally. And by the way, these two networks are connected with the VPN tunnel, which is the secure tunnel. So again, this is another way of representing the same information. A user asks a question. We use metadata to identify which table we can retrieve this information. AI model generate a code which we basically execute on the local machine, and then we show the end result to the customer. So another important feature of Omni chat is whenever we receive a response from it, we have the capability to like or dislike. In case of a dislike, uh, um, if user have a doubt on any of the answers, it can mark it as a dislike. And as soon as uh, it mark it dislike, it goes to the designated trainer, which can be within your company or it could be Octopus Digital. Generally, we have observed it only happens if it lacks some sort of a business rule or a context of your data. So it has the capability to learn over the period of time. So more you use it, the more accurate information it can generate. If we have time, I would like to share some of the chat that we have done. We have a limited time, so do we have some time to?
Khurram, you might want to take a couple of minutes or maybe 5 minutes
Sure,
to go through that
sure,
because
sure.
that's
I
a very
just wanted to
interesting
show,
piece. Yeah, that's a very
we have a
interesting
limited
piece for
time.
the
I just
audience.
wanted to show how it will look like the end product,
Yeah.
right? So let me share
Yeah.
my screen again. So let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, that's visible,
Yeah, we
Khurram.
do, we do.
Okay, so this is one of the dashboard that we have generated using this application. Now, the major difference between this dashboard and any other dashboard is this is generated by the non-technical using plain English. So if you see, it is showing the production comparison between 2016 and 2024. Then it also show the packed output over the period of time. So all these widgets or graphics were generated using natural language. So I'm just trying to show the capability of this product. It's not the basic visualization. You can generate a very comprehensive dashboard using this particular tool. So if you can see comparison, And in addition to that, it can also run machine learning algorithm using natural prompt. So you have a data in this particular graph, you can see it is trying to find the relationship between the number of workers and the actual projection of the system. So it can perform anomaly detection using the natural language. So you can see it can generate a very comprehensive graphs. Secondly, I'm going to show the chat that we did for one of our customers in Qatar. So they basically manage the civil system of Qatar. So if you see the question was what is the current water level of all the tanks at PS32? PS32 is the pumping station over there. So it is showing the live value of different tanks over there using different sensors. Then one of the question was show me the level of PS tank 1 and tank 2. So it is showing the tank levels over the period of time. And then we also ask it to basically plot the flow transmitters of last 24 hours and highlight anomalies, if any. So if you can see, it has plotted that and it has also highlighted some of the anomalies over there. It is OK related data. So and then there are different pumps running on the different tanks. So we ask it to generate a bank plot showing the run status tank for all the pumps. So you can see that it has generated that. So if you can see this, these are plain natural languages related questions, and the system is able to generate a sophisticated charts without requiring a technical details from the users. So you can plot any graph, you can ask live values. Generally, in the OK domain, if you have to get that sort of information, you have to go to the control rooms, ask the operator to draw a graph, and it generally takes a day or so to retrieve such sort of information. But using this particular tool, we were able to retrieve this information right away within a couple of seconds. So I hope due to limitation of the time, I was not able to show the demo, but I'm looking forward to hear the Zain and Bilal feedback of what they have achieved by using OmniChat. Over to you, Adil.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Khurram, for your very deep insight. I'm sure this technical context must have built a lot of insights to our audience as to be able to relate to what it really takes to have such a genie on board. All right, so moving further from here on, so the question is not where the data exists, right? It's whether your people can actually see it when it matters. And in regulated industries across the regions where we operate, that challenge comes with a hard constraint, and that is that your data cannot leave your infrastructure. So that's one of the most common concerns that we have observed. And I believe the topologies and the arrangements that Khurram just briefed pretty much point towards that as to how we solve that challenge. Now, this brings us to the companies that have already made this shift and adopted an approach which is effectively working and contributing, to their success in a particular manner. So our first client today, I'd like to introduce is the Lucky Co Industries, the former ICI Pakistan. If you're in the industrial sector anywhere in Pakistan, in the region, you would know the name. They operate across life sciences, chemicals, polyesters, soda ash, and multiple divisions that actually operate on multiple data sets, as a matter of fact, and leadership that cannot afford to wait days for an answer. So representing LCI today is the Chief Technology Officer. That's Zain Khwaja on this webinar today. He's going to take us through what reporting looked like before OmniChat and what really changed after the deployment. And we're also going to explain as to what is the impact that has been sort of brought out for their leadership team. So Zain, welcome once again, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Adil. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you for having me in this session. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, so I think AI is the new buzzword. We have all been hearing about it for the last couple of years and have been actively trying to work around it. As part of the technology team, I think all of us want to explore new technologies and stay connected to it as much as possible because that's what really keeps us updated. But the challenge that we had at hand, and I would be very candid, we had some very nice dashboards, even dashboards that had received national level recognitions from some of the leading institutions across the country. But the challenge with all of those static data sets, dashboards, reports, always was that they could only show you data. There was often not enough insight when, from a decision maker point of view, whenever we discussed with them, more often than not, when they had to make a decision, they had to gather people, they had to get insight from the people of what happened in the market, what happened with the competition, what happened with the pricing, what happened with the stock levels, why did we do this or that. And those dashboards, despite being very fancy and having a lot of data, did not cover the entire story set. So I will just take you through our journey. So yeah, uh, maybe in your organizations, your data tells a story, but I think that was a challenge that we had at hand. And I would love to hear your thoughts about it. So for example, if a new chief commercial officer or a top commercial guy joins your organization, uh, they would get certain reports out of your ERP system or whatever systems you have in place. They will get dashboards either made on Power BI or Click or Tableau or some fancy technology. But oftentimes the problem is that that data only shows part of the picture. So for example, I would love to hear comments of all of you guys connected that if as a commercial guy or a sales guy, you get a dashboard which shows trends and shows a product that dips in a certain month in terms of the regular sale pattern and then goes to an absolute zero in a subsequent month. What is that guy supposed to infer out of that data? I would love to hear if you guys have any comments about it. Leave that in the chat box. Uh, so when we discussed our teams, they said that that's the problem with reports and dashboards. We can infer anything that we often get heard or is what we have experienced in a past organization or in a past role and not necessarily the true picture. So one of the options can be that somebody can infer that because the demand of that product was going down, it just kept dipping and then eventually just stopped selling. Another guy can maybe infer that there was maybe strong demand, but there was no product availability. Now, now just think about it that if I am the decision maker or somebody in your organization who has to make a decision if that product needs to be relaunched, if he has these two different perspectives that was the product sold because of poor demand or was it did it stop selling because there was just no availability, the demand was very strong, the output of what he is going to decide as a strategy is going to be absolutely different. It's going to be 180 degrees poles apart. So really, was the data telling the story or no? So that's the question. Another option, maybe there was a competition that new technology that was half the price, double the value, maybe offered credit and just swept the market away. But that data or that fancy dashboard of ours was not telling that story, was not conveying that entire perspective. And now this new top guy, despite having those fancy dashboards, is unable to decide what strategy to go towards. What is he supposed to do? Another option, somebody comes up and tells him that the product was probably discontinued because it did not fit in our product portfolio or maybe wasn't giving us enough returns. So now the problem with that guy is he has a set of reports that the technology team has given him. He has a set of dashboards that have been made. But since he doesn't have the context, he doesn't have the story because he's new to the organization, he can't make anything out of that data. So that was the problem statement. That was a challenge that we had at hand. There's another example. I'll briefly go over it. Another scenario that there is a product that shows a significant margin drop in January and February, and there is no sales beyond that. Now, this much is available in those ERP reports, in those fancy dashboards. But what do I infer out of that data? It's not giving me enough insight to come up with a strategy of what needs to be done. This is just plain facts. So, was it a product closure decision that we just decided that we are closing down this product? So we discounted it and we just sold it at a discount? Or was it a product expiry coming up and we thought it's better to sell it at a massive discount than to let it sit and expire? Or we wanted to gain market share, we wanted to go big, we brought our margins down, we went across the country, the product was placed, but by the time we were ready to go really big, there was that Strait of Hormuz closure and there was a supply chain crisis. Now we don't have a product. We built the market, but there is no product. There is no insight in those dashboards, in those static reports. So our idea was that the people sitting in those boardrooms, in those conference rooms, needs more data, more insight on their fingertips. They have a lot of hypotheses, they have a lot of questions, but every time they go back and I'll add another layer that with our modern organizations, iteration has also become a challenge. Not exactly a challenge. This is the new way of working. You don't find many people who have been with the organizations 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, who can give you that entire context. So when you don't have all of those data, you are really relying on data and systems to tell you. But those systems have to be equipped. So I think for us, the question was, can AI really empower the decision makers, the people who have to make decisions, have enough data, insights, and maybe they can cross-question anything and everything they wanted? So that was a starting point for us when we started going out looking for products, and eventually we landed doing a project with Octopus and acquired their OmniChat for one of our businesses. So now I'll just briefly take you how we went about it. So I think I've explained that our main idea was that leadership people who do not actively use the systems, who do not actively land into applications and pull out reports, but are doing more strategic roles, we wanted to empower them and wanted to make it so easy for them that they could ask any question through these natural language, just like a chatbot. So everybody has used Chat GPT just to simplify. They could just ask this tool that why it is happening, what was the stock levels, what was the credit exposure at that point, what was the customer saying, were there any complaints. So what we did to achieve all of this, we combined our ERP data sets, we combined our CRM sales data sets, visits data sets, complaints data sets, our stocks data sets, and some of our Excel files containing budgets and pricing and relevant data into this large model. We kept it, we did a whole data cleansing part to it, and I think I'll go on to it. So I think the next challenge, or again, like I think this one I would skip because we have pretty much discussed this, that we started not by implementing AI. We started first with having a very crisp problem. And we had a very clear set of requirements. And actually, even the users that tested this application were executive users. So the users were really the C-level executives and one layer down. So they were not people who were already using ERP systems or CRM systems. These were decision makers. That is the audience that we were acquiring this for. I think the biggest challenge of the project, or if I can say the time that took us the longest time, was obviously the data cleansing part. Because I think Tanveer also mentioned in his opening that you can only trust the insights or only trust AI as much as the quality of the data that you feed into it. So the problem with uh, isolated data is that the data that does not have to tell a story or maybe is not responsible to tell a story, that it's kept unclean often. It does not correlate. So I think that was the part of the project that took us a while. But once we were done with it, once we trained the AI model on the business semantics, on our local understanding of data, what a plant means to us, what contribution margin means to us, what gross margins means to us, what discount is, and all of that. So all the business semantics, once the model was trained onto it, and we started leveraging it. I think the results have been phenomenal. The leadership team has been very excited using it, and the success criteria has been that they have used this application. And with the leadership team, you can't push them to use an application, and they are not bound to use any application. If the data is not available, they automatically start making decisions based on the gut feeling. But we have noticed over time that they not only use this data, but there is a very fantastic feature which we have actually started implementing in some of our other internal applications. Is a very nice feedback button every time they get a response from the Omni chat bot. So if they think the response is in line, they give a thumbs up. And if they think that the model has made an error or is not understanding what they are trying to ask, they give a thumbs down. And the whole feedback loop goes back to the technology team at Octopus and also comes to our support team who analyzes if the data required some cleansing or if the model required some additional training. And I think that one part has really been very, very beneficial because sometimes, and I think with most of us, life has become so busy that when we don't like something, we stop using it. We don't have the time to go and complain and say, hey, I don't like your bank application. Can you fix it for me? We would rather just switch the banking application because I just don't have the time to wait. And I think with restaurants, you go to a restaurant, you don't like it, you're not going to go and complain. You are just going to say, I'm not coming back here again. I'm going to switch. But I think this feedback feature has been phenomenal in giving them the confidence that, yes, because obviously you have to train them, you have to tell them that it is AI, it is not going to be a 100% accuracy. There is going to be chances of error, and you have to be vigilant about it. So every time they have come across something, they have been very candid, they have shared their feedback, and the whole resolution process had become so swift that they have enjoyed the experience so far in our case. Last of all, I think that part Khurram has already explained in detail, so I'm not going to go much over it. But obviously, one of our major concerns was around data security. So we built a whole governance layer. We isolated the data sets that we wanted the LLM to access. We have isolated all of our enterprise data from anywhere getting close to this, despite having all the assurances in terms of how the product operates. We are still being cautious on our part of only exposing the limited data that we are willing to experiment on with AI. So far, I think the journey has been great for us. We deployed this solution somewhere in November, December. We have started using it since then. The feedback has been good, and we are already discussing other avenues of how we can leverage this on our OT data and on some of our other use cases. So that's it from my side. I hope our learnings can help you get on your journey to AI. Yes, it is a little challenging at first thinking about how this whole thing works, but it's not as challenging. It's relatively simple if you have a real problem at hand and if you have a very clear goal in mind. So that's it from my side. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again, Zain, for your insights and point of view. I think the thread running through your story is quite clear, and that is that data is always there, but the gap between the data and the people who need that data is what OmniChat sort of serves to address. Now, our next speaker has a very similar story, but that's from a different angle as such. The Service Tires is one of the Pakistan's leading tire manufacturers and distributors, as I mentioned earlier as well. And their inbound supply chain runs across banking reconciliations. They have consignment trackings, transportation, and logistics, and all is managed through separate Excel-based data sheets. Now, anyone who's tried to build a single consistent picture from 5 different spreadsheets would know exactly how that goes. So Bilal, Chief Commercial Officer at the Service Tires, is going to share what OmniChat has done for their operations. So welcome, Bilal.
Thank you very much, Adil. So I think I'll continue the conversation where Zain left it, and I want to talk specifically about decision making. And before that, I'd like to actually clarify Service Tires is one company of our group, and we manufacture footwear, we manufacture tires, we export tires, we have a retail network, we do automotive parts. So the complexity of such an arrangement is that different businesses have different data richness, and they have different tempos, different rhythms, a different way of integrating information, updating information. So when you're in the center, sometimes for you to be able to consolidate any view becomes harder because each business is going to respond in a different fashion and with different levels of data integrity. So in our case, what we started doing was that some parts of our businesses we started consolidating into the center because the value of central decision making was so high that it did not make sense to let businesses continue these functions on their own. So one such example is our imports or centralized movement of raw materials, essentially. So when you start doing that, you start interacting with different domain areas. So, for example, we have local trucking, which is a completely, essentially an informal kind of sector. Then we have trade banking, which is a very highly regulated, very restrictive, data intensive system. And then we have clearances and so on and so forth. And now to effectively execute these activities, you need different sort of teams working within this structure. And as most people in our corporate environment would understand, each team inevitably starts developing its own data set, especially depending if work is intense. So if you have high intensity of work, no matter what digital platform you provide to them, they will inevitably revert to an Excel sheet that they're comfortable with. And so what happens is that then the integrity of data changes across the landscape. So if you have a ERP system, it's going to start lagging, but the Excel sheet is always going to be current. So that essentially poses the challenge when you're in a central role. And so now if you want to know a very simple question, like say, which did not exist before, and you didn't have a fancy dashboard, as Zain said, for this particular question, that suddenly State Bank of Pakistan imposes a condition that you can only open LCs of an amount equivalent to what you're exporting. So a kind of financial forex control. And this is a problem that no one recognizes before because it's never been an issue. But suddenly you need to know what each business is wanting to import next week. And so what would you do? You're sitting in a boardroom, all kinds of business leaders are there, and you need to make decisions essentially. And the decision is that business A will get more allocation, business B will get less allocation, blah, blah, blah. But then you don't have the data at that particular moment to make a decision. So decision making is actually not static. Decision making is always conversational. So you ask a question, if you had data in a perfect world and you saw the number, you'd ask another question. So like a 360-degree view, you'd look at it from one angle, then you'd look at it from another angle and another angle. So when you have static reports, you have dashboards, you're stuck in a particular worldview. And if you want to slice the data up in a different fashion, if you want to look at it from another perspective, it's not going to happen immediately. So you'll tell your team they're going to do something, and 6 hours later, if it's a great case, 3 hours later, you're going to have. So you've kind of lost the opportunity of making the best decision for that particular moment. Yes, you will still make a decision, but that would be a suboptimal decision. So in fact, let me just quickly show you a slide to sort of clarify what I'm trying to say. So I hope everyone can see my screen. Can someone confirm if they
It's
can?
visible. Yeah, it's visible.
So, this is like the example I was giving. This is one part of our business. This is the central banking system or import system, trade banking, trade operations, etc. And you have a banking team storing some data in, we have a digital platform for this as well, but essentially there's an Excel sheet and a digital platform. Then there are people who are making sure the material that's at port is getting to the factories on time. Then we have people in clearing who have to make sure that the banks retire the documents. Again, it's a separate team. They have different rhythms. So, banks want documents on their table by 12 p.m. That's a very different world from the logistics people who are operating at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So when on one particular day at 1 p.m., if you want data, they're all going to be disconnected. It's not going to be current. So what's the perfect world? The perfect world is that I would ask someone a question and they would be able to see everything, quickly make an answer for me and give it to me. And that is, I think, somehow we sort of, as management, we reverted to that model that we would have one or two key people and we'd send them a WhatsApp message and they would get their hands, roll up their sleeves, get their hands dirty, open a few sheets, ask a few people to process something, and then quickly give you an answer. But AI, I think, has offered us an unprecedented opportunity that it can work 24 hours and it can read hundreds and thousands of data points, and it can intelligently give you an answer that previously was limited to human knowledge. So in this particular case, what we've done is that we've told the AI what sort of files these are, what sort of data is inside them. It understands the files, it understands the structure. The data at this point is irrelevant. The data, as I think Zain correctly said, is only as good as how well maintained it is. But if you understand the structure, you can still derive an answer. And once you get an answer, you can see that something is off and you can improve the data. So it's kind of a loop, essentially. But this is only effective if I can do it quickly, efficiently, in high velocity. If I can keep asking questions, for example, I can keep asking how much was my import for item A, item B, item C, item D. And when I start adding them up and the answer doesn't add up, I know something's wrong in the data. So for us, this AI offered an opportunity that our managers who would otherwise not have the time to operationally get into files were very quickly able to sort out their data and to very quickly get great snapshots of whatever information was required to make the right decision. So as an example, I'll tell you. I gave you the export example. What I'll show you is how we've constructed our chatbot essentially. So we've moved our static dashboards to OmniChat as well. So if you'll see that we've stuff that we would regularly in routine submit to our different levels of managers. For example, we wanted to know how many original documents were retired, how many are clean. This is a technical terminology in the sense that once you enter a contract with an importing party, they have to conform to a set of terms and conditions. If they do not, that document is not considered clean in terms of a bank's perspective. So when a document comes and there's a discrepancy in this, the company has to take a decision of whether that discrepancy is okay or not. So now any particular day, I want to know how many documents are clean, how many are discrepant, which would be automatically the money would be deducted and which would require me to give a permission. So if you're managing Forex, which was the prior case I was telling you about, this level of information started mattering. Earlier, this was irrelevant. It did not matter. No one wanted to know which LCs are discrepant, which are clean. But eventually, they became relevant. And with a system like the one we're looking at, if there's another requirement tomorrow, we can very quickly retrofit our system to start generating reports without any extensive effort, without any long-term thinking. And we can iteratively improve it. So we don't need to ask any dedicated team to make us a snapshot. And then if it doesn't work, we go to them again and say, okay, do it like this. Our own managers can just quickly ask a question, ask another question, tell it to remove columns B, C, D, tell it to slice it in another way, and then say, record this as a table. And each time we would ask this question as a hash, we'd get this table. The other application that we've done, which I'm going to show you, are natural language queries. So most of my time is spent asking these sort of natural questions to my team members. But now I have the ability to interact directly with the raw data. So I don't need any middleman. I don't need a middle manager to spend their man hours trying to process information in a fashion that would be useful to me. Instead of me going back and forth, I can just dip into the data myself and ask it questions. So in this particular case, for example, it says, show me pending LCs, for example. So SGFL is one of our shoe export companies. So now I'll just send it a query. It'll take its 5-10 seconds, and it's going to provide me a list of documents, pending LCs. So what does this effectively do? At any point in time, I know what sort of foreign exchange exposure I have, contracts that I've entered and that are going to come. Now, this can be particularly interesting for my logistics team, for example, or my shipping team. They want to know what sort of load is coming their way. Now, in a pre-AI world, they would have to go to a particular commercial manager and say, find me this information. And the commercial manager would not be interested in giving this information. Why? Because the commercial manager has his own workload. And the first question would be, why do you want this? I think all of us who are in any professional capacity have heard this question many, many times. You ask something from somebody and their first question is, why do you want it? Whether it's to protect their data or whether it's just because they want to allocate their resources. But now we can connect all of them together and we can empower the manager who's supposed to do their work more effectively and dip directly into the information set. So from my side, this is about it. I just have two more small points to talk about. Nothing of which I have said so far makes a case for this particular product because this is any off-the-shelf AI system can do this. Now, the problem with this is that what you're looking at, for example, is what I consider to be confidential data because these are price information things. So while there's a lot of argument that no AI system trains their model directly on your data or in the sense that I can't ask that what is Lucky Core's total imports for 2026, but that data is eventually stored and systems are trained on it. So now if I can ask them, okay, for soda ash, what sort of raw materials are imported? It would then therefore use any private data that LCI exposed to the chat system or a frontier model, and they would list that A, B, C, D, E, F, G ingredients are required to make soda ash. So this is so if ultimately all models are going to converge to a point where there's hardly any difference in them. The only thing differentiating them would be the kind of data they have access to. Not today, but eventually in the future. So industries will eventually be differentiating themselves on what sort of data they're maintaining. So the Microsoft and Facebooks of the world, they have rich data, they have a different capability. Smaller companies have a different capability, but in the same industry, one tire company will be different from the other tire company of how well they are able to structure their data for any frontier model to work on. So in this particular case, in OmniChat's solution that they offered us, what I jumped at was that the data never leaves my computer system. So what OmniChat only does is it understands my file structure, and when I make a query, it simply creates a code to generate that answer. That code is then run on a local system. The data never leaves my system. All the computation is done on my system or their system. It doesn't matter, but ultimately it's a local system. And then the answer is thrown up. So if I do it a different way, I would simply put in an Excel sheet in Claude Cowork, and I would say, mind this, give me an answer. But there is no guarantee that data is not being used for training. And I think data security, data integrity is something that most people I would recommend they should seriously think about. And because these companies are built on data. The second important thing that I want to mention is that if you do an Excel base or any ERP based static analysis, reporting results, etc., it's very sensitive to the content of each cell. So if I write black as BLACK and if I write black as BLCK as a typo, it is not going to pick up BLCK. But because this is AI is not it's not deterministic, it's probabilistic. Therefore, it will pick all variations of black. Now, this may have different levels of success for different queries and different people, but ultimately you can make it soft enough to say that pick all kinds of things that are steel related, and it will do all kinds of variations. It will even do specifications of steel because the models are well trained enough at the back end to be able to realize that the words are represented in different ways and in different, somewhere with hyphens, somewhere with underscores, somewhere with spaces. So again, this is another capability that it now saves you a lot of time that would have been otherwise spent on cleaning data. So practically what happens is when a senior manager asks their team, they first do a quick run, and then the manager says something seems off, something has been missed. Then they go back and they say, oh, there was something that was written in a different way. Now I've included it. So again, these are all ultimately man hours that are consumed on futile tasks in some sense. So now as AI systems improve, as their capability improves, I think we'll be able to cut away from a lot of man hours that are not adding to pushing your organization forward to a more effective outcome. So that is all from my side, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has anything to say. Adil, over to you.
Thank you, Bilal. Thank you, Bilal. Yes, there are questions that are popping in, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of context building up as we step in further. So, absolutely, Bilal, to your point, what stands out is that both Lucky and Core and Service went from the days of manual reporting to ultimately seconds without a single record leaving their infrastructure. So that's basically what really spells out the potential that we are particularly focused upon in terms of data security and governance. Now,
Adil, I would have
yes,
a quick
please.
question for both Bilal and Zain.
Sure, Dean.
Wonderful nuggets of operational wisdom. I must say, both gentlemen, I'm happy to note that they've kind of used this technology, not for sake of technology, but actually driving value out of it. This is phenomenal. This is exactly what it is intended for. What exacting demand that it puts on your teams who are maintaining and responsible for keeping the data complete and updated all the time. Previously, it was because when you ask OmniChat, it would just give you what it is connected to, the source. So if you find that it doesn't give you that information, you go back and find whether it is there or not. So this puts a lot of exacting demand on the people, and it calls for a governance, data governance,
Yeah.
which is a big subject. So data completeness, data frequency, how, for example, if you want to know something which is recent, the data has to be there. Otherwise, the system is dumb. So what kind of discipline you have put in place as part of the governance on your teams to make sure that what you require is there and is populated in a manner and fashion which serves the purpose for the tool to work as you want it.
So I'll answer this in the sense that where we've implemented Octopus is a part of our business that maintains data integrity, because as I said, they're operational files. So while we can have different levels of frequency, some would be updating every hour, some would be updating at day end, someone maybe after 3 days. While that can exist, but now I think all of us essentially know that any data or digital system will only be maintained if the right manager is looking into it. So things left to their own accord eventually drift, whether it's in data quality or in data, currency. But what Octopus obviously creates is that X factor that anyone at any time can refer to the data. So I think teams are now more on their toes that they could be in but this essentially existed before as well. In that case,
Yeah,
you'd send a
but that
WhatsApp
was
message, but
but
people would have
Bilal,
some
there was not
response time. They'd have,
visible.
yeah,
This
yeah,
was
yeah,
this was
yeah,
not visible actually.
yeah, yeah,
If I am the owner of the data, I would tell you what I want to tell you.
yeah. That's true. That's true.
I mean,
That's
unless you ask me specific question, then I will say, okay, this is also there or it's not there, or I'm cooking it up.
I
Now, at the back end, you quickly see, oh, I think we're not cleaning the data well. I mean, we do a lot of stuff where, for example, there's a product for us called OEE, where when we do OEE, that means it is connected to the ERP systems as well. And we find out that unless the manner in which the frequency with which the SAP data is populated, you cannot see your OE on the fly. You can do a historical analysis, but you can't really see this. So this puts an exacting demand on the people who are responsible to make sure that they keep the data in order so that the tools that you're using, this is an investment. There has to be a discipline in making sure that the data is there all the time, every time, with the frequency and pace that this tool can help you. Speed is all that I emphasize matters a lot. It's it's not hours or days, it's minutes and seconds.
correct.
And that's the intelligence that you want to build into your organization to drive it forward, to make sure that you're very agile. And that's the difference between the growing companies. They want to see this happening. That's the power of AI. Okay, thank you.
I would
Then,
just
if you
add
want to
on to
add
this. Yeah, I would just,
also,
Yeah,
because
Zen, if
I
you would
was
like
very
to. Yeah.
impressed by both of you, the way you have actually articulated your use cases is phenomenal. I must say that. And there's
right. So
a
I
great
just
learning
add
for us.
onto it that our case was slightly different. Most of our data was structured coming from ERP system in terms of sales, stocks, budgets. But there was that CRM part, which was
Mm.
obviously whatever the sales guy wanted, he filled it. So initially, I think during the very first month, we realized that the quality that the leadership wants out of that data or the insight that the leadership wants out of that data was not really exactly there in the system. That story had to be told face to face, but the system was not able to process. So we ran training programs, we even use the same very system to analyze the quality with which different people were filling their CRM reports. And we then scored them and rewarded them at intervals to make sure that they got a better grip of the training. And they're obviously their sales managers and NSMs were the ones leading this, but they were supposed to then they were told what to fill. So if people were supposed to give in competitive information, if people were supposed to fill in complaints related information. So there was a whole uh, deck that was shared with them of what kind of information is required, and not just I visited the customer and he was happy to use the product. They had to give the whole story, because only when the story was there, the data would talk. The other challenge with it was obviously when you are putting in a new system, it is adding work for certain people. So the system was also smart enough to identify and tell when the story was not adding up with the numbers, and also when and where there were copy pastes happening in filling up those reports. So we have made a whole governance structure where we analyze the performance of sales teams beyond just the sales, but also on what kind of information they are bringing back from the market for the leadership teams to base their decisions on. And that has been part of the cleansing process post go live, I would say. Took us a couple of months, but I think we are in a much better shape right now.
Great. I want to restrict myself because it's a very interesting conversation that we can get on with. So, Adil, if you have any questions from the chat, the participants, so you can.
Yes, TK, a few questions that are pretty relevant. So I believe the audience wants to learn a little more about OmniChat. So there is Saad, and he wants to know that what LLM models are we using? And he says that what I understood from the initial discussion is that we have deployed the cloud/on-prem infrastructure for LLM setup. So I believe we might be using OS LLM models. However, when I saw the block diagram and I heard the query will be running by the runtime instead of the LLM, rather LLM supporting and structuring the SQL query and give that to the runtime, this confuses me whether we still use the OS LLM models. So perhaps Khurram, if you would want to add, if you want to add some clarity on that.
Again, let me clarify that. So OmniChat is LLM agnostic, which means it can use proprietary or closed source LLM like ChatGPT, Claude, or any other closed source LLM models. In addition to that, it can also support open source LLM models. Generally, if you remember during the presentation, I demonstrated different deployment models. Generally, in on-prem deployment, where we want to use on-prem LLM models as well, we use open source LLM models. In a hybrid, some of the customers want us to use Azure OpenAI. We can support that. Some of the customers say, we don't care about, you can go ahead and use any LLM model. In that particular case, we have intelligence within the OmniChat. Based upon the question, it can choose the right LLM models based upon your requirements. Now, as far as what sort of information we share, so we only share metadata. And let me explain it with the help of analogy, how the system works. So imagine that you have your bank statement in an Excel file, and you want to calculate OPEX, okay, and you don't know how to do it. So there are two approaches you can calculate that. You can send this file to one of your friends who is a chartered accountant and ask him to calculate OPEX for you. In this particular case, we are sharing the data with the chartered accountant. Another approach is You call your friend and tell him that there are 10 columns in this Excel file. Give me instruction, how can I calculate this OPEX? And he can tell you that filter this statement and do that and do that. You do it on your local machine and you are able to calculate that. This is the second example, and this is exactly what we do. In our case, we only share the column names and nothing else. And then we ask LLM to help us to retrieve the relevant information from in case of a SQL Server or Oracle, it will generate a query which will run on the on-prem model of a hybrid approach. So in any case, keep it simple. There are more technical details to it. We do not share your proprietary data. At any time you decided to discontinue, you can unplug the VPN tunnel and boom, we will not be able to visible any data. And by the way, while we were deploying it for the LCI, one of the the security team basically tested this and make sure that we're compliant with that.
Fantastic, fantastic, Khurram. And I think since this is of a lot of interest to a lot of audience, I have a similar questions from another participant as well. So I'd encourage that we have the option available where you can actually drop in for a request with it, where we can actually do a demo for you and you can answer all of your technical queries in much more deeper detail in a particularly arranged session.
Just adding to your point, one more point. So by the way, whatever information is shared with the LLM is visible and transparent on the application. You can see what information is being shared with the LLM, which is only metadata. And the code that we receive from the LLM is also visible on the application. So the end user has the visibility to see what sort of a code is being executed on the server. So both of these things are transparent. They can seek right away on the application.
Thank you. Thank you, Khurram. I think you've just answered one question that was out there in the list. And another quick one. This is Ahmad Mujtaba asking, can't ERP, SAP, and likes of it be connected with the Omni chat? So again, a bit of a product-related feature, Khurram.
So Omni chat support more than 500 connectors, including SAP, Oracle, SQL Server. You name any famous business application, and we have a connector within this application. So it can connect with any data source that you have. Probably 550 connectors pretty much cover everything. In addition to that, this application also supports MCP protocols for technical peoples. MCP is a protocol that allows LLM to interact with the external tools. There are thousands of open source tools available. So you can extend the behavior of this application by integrating any MCP tool available in the market. And there are thousands of MCP tools available in the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So another quick question, Khurram. Well, let me put this to Bilal, or actually Zain. Zain, you mentioned about the data cleansing, right? So Ahmad Mujtaba from the audience, he wants to ask how much time and effort is required for data cleansing and improving the data integrity. Would you like to just give a bit of your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think it really depends case to case. In our case, the data set we were working on, it took us about, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks. But on different projects, historically, working on different data sets, sometimes it takes a couple of hours, a few days, sometimes it takes much longer. It really depends on the kind of project, the kind of data, how much of the historical data. I think the time really goes exponentially high when you are going 20-year, 10-year, 15-year historical, because over the years we have not really kept data with the same definitions, and different people in different tenures have typically kept subjective data as per their likings. So I think Kamran Saab, Tanveer Saab, or Bilal, either one of them mentioned the importance of master data governance. So I think beyond master data governance and defining data owners is very important if we really want to leverage AI at a much bigger scale. Because you can really do a lot of exceptional stuff with AI, and there's really no time to implement it. The only time that it takes to implement any AI solution is how much data you are willing to cleanse and how much of that cleansing cost or time are you willing to invest on that project.
West.
The rest is all, I think, pretty much out of the box.
Absolutely.
If I
TK,
may
you want
add,
some?
if I
Yeah,
may
please.
add, look, I think the whole idea of using AI is to analyze your data. Why would you invest in something when that the source of it is not cleansed? So the fundamental question is that it will be a pain initially, because what you were doing in the past, you were populating your CRMs, you were populating your SAPs, but you were doing it at your own sweet will. But now the demand to have a data quality has increased because you're using a technology, that is AI, which lives on that quality of data. So whatever you get is based on how well. So once, for example, if you start filling the CRM the way it is needed for the AI, then the problem is solved. So it calls for another leg of technology, which is a human training, reskilling and retraining of humans as to how they must maintain their CRM. Like, for example, in our own organization, it took us almost 1 year to make sure that the CRM, sales CRM, is populated the way we want it. But now it is a 5 minutes job. It is no more as cumbersome and arduous job. But initially, when you ask somebody to do that, it was a big thing. So once the discipline is set in, it enables you rather than it works against you. It doesn't consume your time, it saves your time. The tools have to increase your throughput, your quality of work and everything, rather than you see it as a counterintuitive and consuming your time. It does not. The way we look at it is that we would fill a CRM as we like it, and that's not because it is not consumed by anybody else. You still use Excel sheet, and then you show it in presentations and sharing the data. But once you say, I don't want to look at any other sheet but CRM, the discipline is set in. And once the discipline is set in, it's just so easy to keep that thing maintained all the time.
Absolutely, TK. Brilliant thoughts. And
I
more than just
have
the
an
discipline, it's all
alternate
about,
I
yes,
have an
Bilal.
alternate
Yeah.
view to this as well. So I
Right,
think
yes.
that one way is, of course, you get your data to a very high quality level and then unleash AI. Or the second option is that you unleash AI now and use AI to improve your data. Because
Right.
one exercise that you're going to do, you can do it in so many steps and angles that it's very quickly to identify which are the weakest points or the limiting points of your data set. So, I mean, that's an approach we've taken, and I've always had people coming up to me with challenges that, our data is not clean enough. For example, the description of an item, it varies so much. And we've sort of been able to use AI to very quickly resolve those issues. We've been able to create supersets of similar types of goods, etc., things that are relevant to us. So I think it can be a hand-in-hand process as well.
Absolutely.
Bilal,
Absolutely.
exactly what you've said is right, because now AI is helping to find out where the data gaps are for you, right?
Yes,
But you
correct.
need to keep those, you need to fill those gaps through a process of disciplining people to make sure that they keep filling the data that AI demands. So you've
100%.
gone the reverse way, but ultimately the job is still there, that somebody
Yeah.
has to make sure that the data is plugged in properly.
So I just wanted to clarify to the viewers that sometimes we think of doing something before as a priority instead of
Yeah.
something that can be done in tandem. That was my
Right.
point.
Yeah,
And
okay, good.
actually,
Right.
ultimately you get to a point where it needs to be done. You can't avoid that.
Right.
Yes, yes.
And as a part of the inclusiveness of the digital transformation at the core, I mean, it's sometimes or most of the times the same um, team as an audience or the consumer of this facilitation who are actually contributing to the data plugging in. So therefore, the inclusiveness really helps them realize that, okay, the quality of the data, once which is manually entered into a system, really matters for the quality of the output that they would expect from a tool such as this. So absolutely, inclusiveness matters. So building upon that, TK, one question that I would like to refer to you importantly is that how does
I hope
the
it is not too
product like
technical.
it's not too technical at all, but it's very much associated to business outcomes. So this is a very famous common question that comes, and I'm glad that it has appeared. That what are the ROIs that a customer or a consumer or a user of a tool like OmniChat can expect? I mean, this is such a broad. Yes.
It is very simple. I give
Yeah.
you our we develop products, right?
Yes.
So when you develop a product,
Yes.
you put in hours. Our asset is human hours. It's perishable commodity, right?
Right.
So if somebody tells me that to develop this product from uh, URS to detailed design to development to UAT and and from to production, how much hours would I need? That much cost that I have to put in and accept. I said, okay, use AI and cut those hours almost by 50%. That's my ROI.
Absolutely.
Simple.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I can increase my throughput.
Yeah.
So those hours
Yeah.
saved can be put into developing another set of product,
Absolutely.
right? So this is an ROI.
Absolutely.
So that's for us, it is an ROI. We're
Yeah.
saving man hours in developing something, even in implementation. An implementation costing 6,000 man hours are reduced to 1,300 man hours. Look
Absolutely.
at the differential of savings.
Absolutely.
And I can
That's
bring
it.
my cost down as well during implementation. Of course, there is a cost of AI as well that I have to incur. But having said that, look at the unleashing the power of hours available to me to put them to better use than to waste them.
Absolutely.
That's a straight
Absolutely.
no-brainer.
You've given a very distinguishable example, which is where the cost of the hour matters, but
Yeah,
especially
yes.
when we have teams, their time is also valuable and it matters. AI tools such as OmniChat bringing in the agility is such a great favor that we can bring together, and that helps people develop a good work-life balance as well
And
and be more agile in their approach at work.
why would
Mm.
intelligent people use their time on repetitive work
Absolutely.
and templated work and all of that and searching for information, making reports and all? This is not putting human intelligence to better use. They should be used
Absolutely.
for judgment, for
Absolutely.
thinking, for creating new stuff, and
Yeah.
using the AI to embolden their efforts. That's the power of
Absolutely.
AI.
And TK, there's another question that builds up from here, and it's related to the pricing model. So again, talking about AI, talking about cost and price of adopting a tool such as this. So we have a pricing model which you would want
Yes.
to brief a bit
Yeah,
about.
we have
Yes.
a simple pricing model. There's a certain number of questions and a price tag for those questions. That's the simplest model that we have. So that's based
Perfect.
on the number of questions you asked. And there's a
Number
fixed,
of users. Number of users can be as
it's no
many.
unlimited users, but if more
Okay.
users are asking the questions, you will exhaust your quota of
Okay.
questions that are there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's very simple model.
So another question which is associated to the application, interesting question. So is all the data available to all the users at the same time, or can we segregate the access to certain data points? So I think the user is trying to ask that if I have the access to financials,
Khurram
but
can
I'm not
better
a
answer
financial.
this, but
Yeah,
I
Khurram.
believe you can.
So, so the detailed answer is this application support role-based access control.
Role-based
So we
access.
can ensure which user have access on a particular data set. So that we can have multiple data sets, and even within the data set. So let's say if we have a sales data, we can restrict that this user can only view the sales of a north region. So we can also have a row-level security implemented in this particular product. So we do
And of
support a
course,
very comprehensive role-based and row-based access control.
and the customer administrator can actually manage these role-based access on their own.
Yes. So
Perfect.
whenever we deploy this application, there is one admin user from the
Right.
customer side, so they can configure this for their organization.
So, Khurram, this one is related pretty much to you as well. So, how does the deployment, how long does the deployment take? So, if you could please touch base a bit on the infrastructure part, which is the configuration setup, and then, of course, the data cleansing and the training part. If you can just briefly give a bit of a view on that.
So as soon as you give us in case of a hybrid model, as soon as you give us the VM or the one physical machine, we take 4 hours to deploy OmniChat runtime on the network.
Okay. Okay.
In the next
4
day, we
hours.
will be able to give the application will start giving the answers right away. But we normally take 5 to 10 days for the training purposes. We call it hypercare model. The idea is the user can start asking the questions, and if they see that there are some issues with the responses, they can highlight that and we can fix or update the training. That's pretty much it. Typically, within a week or 2 weeks, we can implement it.
So which means that technically, if I sign up today, I can get my OmniChat instance available, my user created tomorrow, and I will have a team who will help me build my data set or train my data set, bit of a hand-holding, which is where then I can be on my own, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I do not essentially need to be connected to Octopus Digital's backend teams to help me day in, day out if I need to add more data or add more dimensions.
So the only thing that you need to available is that your data is available and it has the right data. And give us one machine which is connected with your data source.
Okay.
And from there onward, we only take 1 day to connect.
Perfect.
To configure the runtime, and from there onward, normally data is available. The rest of the week or 2 day is hypercare period where the customer will be able to ask questions, and we will be assisting them in making sure that they get the right answers from their data.
All right.
Generally speaking, is the context that they have to be the terms that they normally use in the organization. We have to educate LLM on that. That's pretty much it.
Perfect. Thank you. Just in the interest of time, so we have 2 more participants, Uzair Khan and Azhar Ilahi. So I'll just merge their question into one. So Uzair wants to know that what size of a data OmniChat can handle, like the historical 10 years, 20 years or more. And Azhar wants to know that how does the single click or the one-click feedback feature, which Zain emphasized on as being very effective, how does the feedback, data itself governed? So it's a bit more technical, I would say, can be addressed separately, but I think you would want to touch a bit about on the size of the historical data that it can manage and how the feedback works. Yeah.
Sure. So during my architecture diagram, I explained that all the processing is done on your servers. So
All right.
it does not matter the size of the data that you have. The more data you will have, the more power you should have on your database engine. So I told you that our infrastructure basically execute all the code on your server. So the capacity of your server will determine how much data OmniChat can handle. Historically, for one of our customers, they have 750 million records for one particular data warehouse, and we were able to handle that without any problem.
Perfect.
So technically, if your database server specs will determine how much data our OmniChat can handle.
Right. And the compute capability available on that server itself. So again, that's not something that really impacts the functionality or the performance of OmniChat as a tool. Yes.
So Adil, one question is related to one-click feedback. So whenever you ask a question and you receive a response, a user is shown 2 options where they can click on the thumbs up or thumbs down. Whenever they click on the thumbs down, what happens is the question, the response goes to the administrator of your customer. So let's say if we have
Perfect.
LCI, the LCI admin will get this information. While configuration, LCI may ask that we can receive, the Octopus team should also receive this confirmation. So depending upon how we have configured it, we or the customer admin can receive this information and they can update training if they feel that there is something missing in there.
Perfect, perfect. So this is one question that probably Bilal and Zain, you guys would want to reflect on it. So it's a very naive question. So can non-technical users actually independently use and operate a tool like OmniChat? Or what kind of technical knowledge do they really need to build as a baseline to be able to effectively use this as a tool? So for both of you guys, so Bilal, would you want to comment on a bit? So it's about
Yeah,
how
of course.
non-technical people can
Of course,
actually effectively
I'm a
use it.
non-technical user. Number one,
Yeah,
I'm a non-technical user.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
uh, and if you know English and you can express yourself, if you can ask questions, so you can even configure this thing yourself. Although I would still recommend that some technical team does this, but theoretically you can do it on your own as well. And querying it is just talking to someone, like anybody.
yeah.
Just need if you make, and I'm sure as non-technical as you are, you still use Excel sheets if you're in Pakistan at least, and if you're working
Just
in
on the
some
lighter note, you can actually ask, OmniChat, you can actually ask questions in Urdu or Arabic or whichever language you might prefer.
तो
SIM
उससे
card
बात है कि
option
AI
there
की
as well.
वजह से everyone has become a technical user now. So
And by the way,
just ask
Absolutely.
it to do stuff.
so Adil,
Yeah.
we will be providing the conversational, argue-based conversation with the system.
Okay,
So
brilliant.
people
Okay.
can talk and with the data, and the system will be able to respond back. So this is
Perfect.
something
So
that is in the pipeline.
So on a lighter note again, does OmniChat also answer if you ask them, I'm not feeling well today, so can you do the rest of my work for me today?
If it,
So it has
So
that
we,
human
if
touch
it's
to
in
it,
your
emotional touch
database,
to it.
yes.
If you've
That's the
trained it
future,
enough,
we'll get
yes.
there, inshallah. We'll get there.
We'll get there, inshallah, right? Perfect. Okay. So yeah, Zen, on your part as well, I believe a lot of your users are non-technical as well. I mean, well, let me say sales is kind of non-technical category of users who actually interacts with the system.
Yeah, if by non-technical they mean somebody from non-IT, yes, this is for
Yeah,
non-IT people. It is not for, we
absolutely.
are not using
Yes.
OmniChat for
Yeah,
any of our IT use cases, but
right.
specifically for business data. So it is used by people who make decisions. And people in sales, people in supply chain, people in finance, it is for them.
Perfect. Perfect.
And they have had
All
no
right.
issues using it.
All right.
But
Perfect.
it
Thank
is
you
a
for
bit technical how to ask a question. So so if you ask a question in plain language, then that's the only technical part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the most
This is
important.
also becoming a skill to ask the right question to these
Yeah,
tools,
yeah,
right? So people
yeah.
supposed to train themselves. Perfect. Okay, so one of the this is Raja Vamik, in fact. Okay, so he wants to know, Khurram, this one's associated to you. Is an on-premise deployment available for Middle East market? Oh, of
Well,
course, I believe yes.
yes, it is. It is.
Definitely. I think that pretty much has been explained earlier as
I
well.
mean,
Mhm.
Khurram, you can
So
Yeah.
Adil, we actually have one of the biggest deployment for OmniChat is in the Middle East.
Right.
So we did one use case for
Yeah.
Qatar, right?
Mm.
So it can be deployed anywhere. It's a SaaS application. It can be done anywhere.
Right. Perfect. I think that pretty much answers the question. So I would encourage the audience because the questions are keep coming in, and we've actually hit the targeted timeline. And I just want to really bring this to a closure, gentlemen. Thank you so much for bringing in such valuable insights and information that I'm sure would be very useful for the audience who has joined us today and who would be watching this podcast, this webinar on a recording, which would be available soon on YouTube and the LinkedIn portals as well, etc. So I think just to kind of summarize, I'll take the opportunity that the problem is not the data, right? It's the gap between the data and the people who need it. And both, we heard from both Lucky Core and Service that the information they always had it inside their systems. And what they did not have was something as fast and a secure and easy way to actually query it, and which is where actually the OmniChat filled the gap. So we chose between we actually choose between enterprise security and GenAI. The bigger concern we hear, especially from companies in the Middle East, right? We cannot put our data on external servers, but OmniChat was designed for this particular constraints, right? Which is where you can keep your data to where it belongs. You do not really need to really move it out into the public databases or public clouds, and your data stays on your infrastructure without exceptions. The other important point is that this does not take leap years to deploy, right? Lucky Code and Service both went from deployment to the daily use within the weeks, as we heard. And you can actually pilot this in your department, within a week's time, as Khurram was explaining. So that's pretty much, how convenient it has become to actually leverage from such brilliant technology available today. And that too as a subscription model, which is where you can always plug out the cable when you believe it's not effective for you, and actually scale up when you believe that, yes, it has really created that impact that you were looking for. Yes, TK, you would want to add? Yes.
If you really want to make use of the technology or the AI, then pilot is a good thing to start with.
Absolutely.
But scaling is fundamental, provided that you have the sponsorship of your executive leadership towards this. Without which pilot can deliver you certain dividends, that's fine. That may be departmental or anything. But if it doesn't move beyond that, the organization cannot really harness the power of the technology. So
Absolutely.
you must scale your pilots once you're successful. And that is the litmus test that how far you can go with that. I'm not saying that as they say, you think big, start small, and grow fast, scale fast, right? So if you miss the boat, something else will come along, and you will never be able to realize that. Once you think that this is it, this is giving you the benefits, then you have to scale fast. And then this transforms the organization. It is a transformational tools. It's a digital transformation. That's what we were saying. You transform your organization, not department. It is not a departmental fix. It's the whole, it has a different genre altogether. So it's transformational technology. Use it if it suits your business requirements. And I've seen that it does suit every business situation.
Thank you so much, TK, for that insight as well, and pretty much aligns with what we've been talking about today in terms of how Lucky Code and Service both went from the deployment to daily use within the weeks, and then expanding it further. So piloting is again a week away from you. So just on the side note, by the way, we've just posted the link in the chat window, which is where you can book one-on-one session if you keep an interest to see exactly as to how the OmniChat functions, operates. You can ask the questions where we will have our experts sitting on the call, and they will be able to steer your thoughts to the direction where you can have answers to all of your queries for this very immaculate and easy to adopt functionality-based tool. So for those in the Middle East,
bring it to a close, Adil. It's gone past our
absolutely
allocated time, maybe.
Absolutely. We're just getting close to 5. All right. So again, big thank to Zain and from Lucky Core Industries, and Bilal from the Service Tires for sharing your experiences so openly with us today. And special thanks to you, TK, for highlighting the transformation role of the GenAI in helping organizations truly connect their enterprise data and turning into what was once really scattered and hard to access in an instant. So thank you once again, and thank you, Khurram, for your very valuable technical insights as well. We'll be
Special
announcing
thanks to our
the
participants.
Absolutely, the participants as well, for
who
sure.
could join us. Thank you for their valuable time.
Thank you,
everyone. Our speakers.
Our speakers as well. Thank you. And we will be announcing our episode 4 very soon on the LinkedIn page soon. So keep an eye on that. And we look forward to having you soon back again. Thank you so much, everyone. Close the day here.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for having us.
Bye.
Take
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.